morning, Earthlings. How you doing today? Welcome to First Contact Radio. This is our Friday edition. Let's jump over to our cosmic weather, see what we have to deal with today. All right, solar wind 325.6 kilometers per second. Planetary K index 1. 24-hour could get as high as 1. Corona holes, they seem to have smoothed over a bit. Our chance for flares has gone up, though. From 35%, now it's up to 50%. So it's made a 15% jump in the last 24 hours. However, our geomagnetic storm activity is still low. Let's take a look up here. It says we have increasing chance of flares. NOAA forecasters has upped the odds of an M-class solar flare to 50%. The likely source would be a big double spot AR 1654. At the moment, the active region is crackling with lesser C flares, such as the one recorded by NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory during the late hours of the 10th. Okay, something to keep an eye on. Astrologically, we are right over here. Yesterday I was talking about the double Capricorn. Well, that's what we have today. Capricorn Sun, Capricorn Moon, New Moon. So remember, Capricorn is an Earth sign. So we have Earth on both the physical conscious mind and the unconscious mind as well. The physical world. Now remember, the reminder that we're taught about Capricorn is, though it is of the physical world, we're supposed to look at things below the surface to know that the physical world is simply a condition of the spiritual world. And so therefore, if we get caught up in the physical only, then we're seeing an illusion. We have to look past the illusion of the physical to what's deeper. And that is what this Capricorn is all about. Of course, that is a understanding that comes from connecting the tarot card of the devil, which is the tarot card representing Capricorn, that understanding to it. So today, as we have our new moon, we want to think about the practical things we want to accomplish, that we want to work towards creating and doing over the course of this year, over the course of this week, this month, however you want to break down your timelines. But what we need to do in the process of creating that and developing that, we always want to keep focus on what is behind the creation of that, what's behind the scenes, not just the element itself, what is the makeup of the element, because everything can be traced back to a spiritual condition. So when we understand that, we understand the physical a bit better. The moon phase, new moon, Mayan Oracle, 7-tone day. 7-tone is called the resonant tone. Symbol for today is the star, so today is the resonant star, guided by the sun. Phrase for today is, I channel in order to beautify inspiring art. I seal a store of elegance with the resonant tone of attunement. I am guided by the power of universal fire. The next 2 days we're going to be dealing with the monkey and the human, which is playfulness and then free will. And then we'll be back on Monday with the Skywalker of exploration. The date for today, as I just said, is Friday the 11th of January 2013. So, moving right along. So yesterday, the first piece I played was about the Kybalion, and it was the first of 8 pieces. Very informative if you've never read or heard of the Kybalion. It's an excellent book, very easy to read, small little book. I'm going to play part 2 today, big chunk of it, and then maybe over the weekend you might get an opportunity to listen to the rest of it if it is something that interests you. All right, let's jump over to this. Here we go.
The terms of the material universe, the phenomenon of life, matter, energy, and in short, all that is apparent to our material senses, is spirit, which in itself is unknowable and undefinable, but which may be considered and thought of as a universal, infinite, living mind. It also explains that all the phenomenal world or universe is simply a mental creation of the all, subject to the laws of created things, and that the universe as a whole, and in its parts or units, has its existence in the mind of the all, in which mind we live and move and have our being. This principle, by establishing the mental nature of the universe, easily explains all of the varied mental and psychic phenomena that occupy such a large portion of the public attention, and which, without such explanation, are non-understandable and defy scientific treatment. An understanding of this great hermetic principle of mentalism enables the individual to readily grasp the laws of the mental universe and to apply the same to his well-being and advancement. The hermetic student is enabled to apply intelligently the great mental laws instead of using them in a haphazard manner. With the master key in his possession, the student may unlock the many doors of the mental and psychic temple of knowledge and enter the same freely and intelligently. This principle explains the true nature of energy, power, and matter, and why and how all these are subordinate to the mastery of mind. One of the old Hermetic masters wrote long ages ago, "He who grasps the truth of the mental nature of the universe is well advanced on the path to mastery." And these words are as true today as at the time they were first written. Without this master key, mastery is impossible, and the student knocks in vain at the many doors of the temple. Principle number 2. The principle of correspondence. A quote from the Kybalion. "As above, so below. As below, so above." This principle embodies the truth that there is always a correspondence between the laws and phenomena of the various planes of being and life. The old Hermetic axiom ran in these words, "As above, so below. As below, so above." And the grasping of this principle gives one the means of solving many a dark paradox and hidden secret of nature. There are planes beyond our knowing, but when we apply the principle of correspondence to them, we are able to understand much that would otherwise be unknowable to us. This principle is of universal application and manifestation on the various planes of the material, mental, and spiritual universe. It is a universal law. The ancient Hermetists considered this principle as one of the most important mental instruments by which man was able to pry aside the obstacles which hid from view the unknown. Its use even tore aside the veil of Isis to the extent that a glimpse of the face of the goddess might be caught. Just as a knowledge of the principles of geometry enables man to measure distant suns and their movements while seated in his observatory, so a knowledge of the principle of correspondence enables man to reason intelligently from the known to the unknown. Studying the monad, he understands the archangel. Principle number 3, the principle of vibration. This principle embodies the truth that everything is in motion, everything vibrates, nothing is at rest. Facts which modern science endorses, and which each new scientific discovery tends to verify. And yet, this Hermetic principle was enunciated thousands of years ago by the masters of ancient Egypt. This principle explains that the differences between different manifestations of matter, energy, mind, and even spirit result largely from varying rates of vibration. From the all, which is pure spirit, down to the grossest form of matter, all is in vibration. The higher the vibration, the higher the position in the scale. The vibration of a spirit is at such an infinite rate of intensity and rapidity that it is practically at rest, just as a rapidly moving wheel seems to be motionless. And at the other end of the scale, there are gross forms of matter whose vibrations are so low as to seem at rest. Between these poles, there are millions upon millions of varying degrees of vibration. From corpuscle and electron, atom and molecule, to worlds and universes, everything is in vibratory motion. This is also true on the planes of energy and force, which are but varying degrees of vibration, and also on the mental planes, whose states depend upon vibrations, and even on to the spiritual planes. An understanding of this principle with the appropriate formulas enables Hermetic students to control their own mental vibrations as well as those of others. The masters also apply this principle to the conquering of natural phenomenon in various ways. Says one of the old writers, "He who understands the principle of vibration has grasped the scepter of power." Principle 4. The principle of polarity. This principle embodies the truth that everything is dual. Everything has two poles. Everything has its pair of opposites, all of which were old Hermetic axioms. It explains the old paradoxes that have perplexed so many, which have been stated as follows. Quote, "Thesis and antithesis are identical in nature, but different in degree," end quote. Opposites are the same, differing only in degree. The pairs of opposites may be reconciled. Extremes meet. Everything is and isn't at the same time. All truths are but half-truths. Every truth is half false. And there are two sides to everything, etc. It explains that in everything there are two poles, or opposite aspects, and that opposites are really only the two extremes of the same thing, with many varying degrees between them. To illustrate, heat and cold, although opposites, are really the same thing, the differences consisting merely of degrees of the same thing. Look at your thermometer. See if you can discover where heat terminates and cold begins. There is no such thing as absolute heat or absolute cold. The two terms heat and cold simply indicate varying degrees of the same thing, and that same thing which manifests as heat and cold is merely a form, variety, and rate of vibration. So heat and cold are simply the two poles of that which we call heat, and the phenomena attendant thereupon are manifestations of the principle of polarity.
This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
All right, Dirk. Thank you very much. I have 5 stories for today. Let's get over to them. First story comes to us from California. This is a story of a mother and a daughter who saw a chevron UFO over Alpine County. California mom and daughter northbound along Highway 88 in Alpine County reported a chevron-shaped object just above the tall tree line that hovered and slowly moved south about 8 p.m. on the 8th of January 2013, according to the MUFON database. The witness thought that they were all about 5,000-foot elevation and not yet driven into Ham Station when the object was first seen. I glanced up above the tree line because there was a very lit-up chevron-shaped object on the other side of the highway and to the left. The witness pulled over, and both she and her daughter got out of the car and anticipating taking photos. It hovered where I first saw it for a few seconds and very slowly and silently made its way above the tree line, somewhat south and parallel to Highway 88, until it was obstructed by the trees and could no longer be seen. This took about a minute or a little more. All right. Moving from California over to Maine. We have a Maine witness in Dexter reported watching a round red object at tree level that hovered and began moving west, according to the January 9th testimony on the MUFON database. The witness realized that cable television was flickering, and then it stopped working and stepped outside when the object was first seen. I noticed a low luminous cloud above a small part of Lake Wasokag across the street, the witness stated. As I was observing the cloud, a red glow appeared to the left of the cloud, just below the tree line. I initially thought it was a radio antenna light, and then it started to rise. A large, bright red object that emerged from the trees approximately 300 yards away from me. I was facing north. It appeared to be pulsating and was round like an orb with another object in the center emitting red light with some hints of white light as well. Got binoculars, tried to get a better look. As it continued to move to my left, west, it seemed to cross above the street and move behind another section of trees and houses. I ran down the street with my binoculars but was unable to regain sight of the object. Okay, that's over Maine. From Maine, we're going to move over to Australia, and this is using infrared buzzing by a helicopter here. So here's our helicopter and our UFO. This was recorded using an IR or infrared filter of a Sony camcorder from Lou 20764, famous in the UFO community, that he personally has inspired hundreds of UFO hunters. Alright, so let's see what he caught. You can see here we've got a filter on, just to see that the object in question has something more to it. It's not a shadow on the screen. There's something definitely to it. Okay, I believe this is our object right down here. Alright. So that's what we see there. There's our helicopter. Okay, that's our sighting over Australia. From Australia, here's a report on this Amherst sighting that took place. It says Amherst, Massachusetts. Dozens of residents of the Amherst area are baffled by what they describe as a weird low-flying object seen moving over the town this week. The witnesses described the UFO seen after dark Tuesday as the size of 2 to 3 cars and roughly diamond-shaped or even triangular. It was visible because of its dim white lights. One woman said it was about 75 to 100 feet above her car. Another told the Daily Hampshire Gazette the object was too slow and too quiet to be an airplane. Police said they received one call about lights in the sky, but they didn't investigate. Westover Air Reserve Base, which has a radar tower in Amherst, said it had nothing in its logs about any aircraft moving through the area at that time. Okay? And one last story. This is about MUFON and some expansion plans that they have. Said a series of meetings in France on January 11th, today, tops off a year-long push for more international organization and members for the MUFON network. MUFON Executive Director David McDonald left his Cincinnati headquarters with his sights firmly set on Paris to discuss further international expansion. MUFON is the world's largest and most organized UFO study organization. We now have national directors, regional directors, field investigators, and general members in 39 countries, McDonald said. In 19 of these countries, we have national directors with fully organized, fully functional MUFON chapters encompassing a devout following of UFO enthusiasts numbering into the 5-figure range. Europe and South America are fully engaged in this effort. McDonald described the Paris meeting as one of the most prestigious conclaves of UFO directors in the history of ufology. So we'll see how that goes, but expanding, it's only good because as these things expand, it continues to move us closer to that point of disclosure. All right, that's our UFO news for today. I'm going to jump away momentarily. I'll be back. Stay tuned. And here we go.
What if our government was responsible for some of the greatest crimes against this nation? Would you really want to know? These are big questions, but these questions deserve answers. It's time to demand the truth.
People shouldn't be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid.
All right, let's continue on here. 3-minute news is up next. Let's check out what this is all about for today.
Good morning, folks. Here is your first look at NASA's latest satellite, part of the Landsat Data Continuity Mission, aka Eyes on Earth, set to launch out of Vandenberg here on February 11th. And speaking of seeing Earth from above, Australia burns. The heat is so bad they're changing the data scale. The fire danger so high, burn bans are in effect. NASA's Earth Observatory caught these images, and I've linked the article for you below. USS Jacksonville, watch where you're going, ran into a fishing vessel this morning, but allegedly all is well. Had a mid-sized tremor near Antarctica yesterday. This morning a moderate shaking rattled New Zealand. Top quake of the day caused no damage, no injuries, and will never be marked as significant by the USGS, but if you've been watching closely, you know this area barely gets 4-pointers, let alone 5s, and the swarm is continuing this morning. Back to Australia, and if you aren't in a fire zone, maybe you've got a Class 3 cyclone bearing down on you. Be safe out west, mates, and get a weather share in if you can. The big blue blob of Winter Storm Gandalf, spinning counterclockwise, so pulling up warm southern air ahead and cold northern air down behind as it all rushes into the center. Expect snowstorms west and central, rain on the leading edge that will make it east up to Canada. Europe has multiple converging pressure systems making sweeping forecasts pale compared to checking your local data, but here's the recent rainfall in expected precipitation areas. Having a look at the Bartol cosmic ray chart, we are steady as she goes on the cosmic ray density line, right between 100 and 101. Now, as you watch a filament rip away from the backside of the sun behind the eastern limb, know that the backside has been very active, and now the Earth-facing disk has broken the silence. We had a C8 flare yesterday afternoon, and this morning we already saw an M flare. If you are curious about the other sunspot groups, see yesterday's video. This is the showstopper. Just look how she moves. All focus is right here. We've seen nothing but decaying sunspots for a while, and while this does count as decay, it is almost more of a shift. The leading spot has become a phalanx all its own, but with that powerful trailing spot still connected. The dark cores are called umbras. The areas surrounding the umbras are penumbras, and beyond the size of the sunspot, the more magnetic mixing within the penumbral and umbral regions, the more complex the active region is as a whole. This is Beta Gamma Delta, and I'll be shocked if she'd confined to just one pop. I'm leaving you with different AIA wavelengths of this active region. We have a new moon today. Mercury conjoins the sun in about 1 week. Kommt die Sonne. Here comes the sun. Eyes open. No fear. It's 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and that's the news. Be safe, everyone.
All right, very good. Good stuff. So we know what we're dealing with out there in the world, right? All right. Moving right along. Okay. So let's turn our attention a little bit towards some of the workings that are going on in the daily life that we're all having to deal with. The most current issue is this gun control issue, right? You've heard all about it, stemming from these shootings that are taking place. And so because of the shootings, lawmakers want to put into effect laws that are going to restrict guns or remove guns from American citizens. And along the way, we keep hearing the comments that Biden makes that Obama can just sign an executive order, to all the other nonsense that's going on. And in the course of the study, we've also found that these shootings all seem to have patterns to them that suggest that there was something staged about them. Even the most recent shooting that just took place the other day, again, one strange events took place. For example, they said that during the course of the shooting there was an exercise that was taking place on how to evacuate students from the school in case there is an emergency. Good thing they were doing that drill, because the moment that the exercise turned live, they knew what to do because they were in the middle of the drill. Now, how many times have we heard stories like this where there's been an event and there has been an exercise taking place either exactly in that location or somewhere within the area? And it's one of these strange things that happens. It's sooner or later going to get past a point of coincidence for a lot of people, and they're actually going to realize that these are all not just coincidental points, but they're actually points showing that there is something planned about these events. Anyway, I'm not going to go on about that. The point of this whole issue is that, well, the White House is giving us the impression that they're going to take the guns away. And while Obama is certainly seemed to be leading the charge and speaking towards gun control, his actions are quite the opposite. Obama signs bill giving him armed protection for life, while simultaneously launching effort to disarm the American people. Despite launching a gun control agenda that threatens to disarm the American people, President Obama has signed a bill that would afford him armed service protection for life. The legislation, crafted by Republican Representative Trey Gowdy of South Carolina, rolls back a mid-1990s law that imposed a 10-year limit on Secret Service protection for former presidents. Bush would have been the very first commander-in-chief affected. The new bill, which will cost American taxpayers millions of dollars, is a reinstatement of the 1965 law, which will see presidents protected for life as well as their children up to age 16. The irony of Obama seeking to surround himself with armed men for the rest of his life, while simultaneously working to disarm the American people via gun control agenda, is likely to be enforced via executive decree, represents a height of hypocrisy. Again, these are called lies. What do we say about Obama? How do we know he's lying? His lips are moving. What do we know about Obama? At least that I keep saying over and over. Obama is the Antichrist, or certainly represents the Antichrist. Therefore, it is not a surprise to me that he is lying. The only surprise to me is that people are surprised when he lies. That's the most shocking thing, okay? The information is out there that this is not a good guy. He's a two-faced individual, like many of the presidents have been. So why anyone would believe him, I don't know. Even if he was the same skin color as I was, I still wouldn't believe him. George Bush was the same skin color as I am, and I didn't believe him. So hopefully there's a number of individuals out there who can see past the superficial nature of the color of his skin to the actions he is taking to realize they are contrary to the things that he is saying. Maybe not, but one could only hope that people would somehow wake up to the reality of what is going on. One would hope. One would hope, right? I mean, we all can evolve in life, can't we? We've evolved to the point where we should understand these sort of things. One would hope. I think I'm going to shut up now before I get myself into any further trouble. Okay. Crazy. Now, we've heard all about Alex Jones. We've heard all about the situation on Piers Morgan that he had when he was on the show and the debate they had. We heard all about Piers Morgan's stats going on and on and on. But he's not correct. You know, it was brought up in a post the other day I was reading and about Piers Morgan and how Piers Morgan is a citizen of England working here in America. He has a brother that is a member of the British military, I believe might possibly an officer over there. And yet he is in America on a news programming telling Americans that they need to get away from the Constitution and the Second Amendment. Does anybody notice something incorrect and wrong with this? Do you remember a thing called the Declaration of Independence? was a declaration of the United States of America, a group of patriots stepping away from England, because all of the same things that are taking place now with their government, with our governments, are the same reasons why the Founding Fathers left England. And now to be here in America and have a guy like Piers Morgan, who is not an American citizen, who has ties to British military, who is dictating to Americans how they should operate their constitution, seems absolutely ludicrous. And anybody that's listening to Piers Morgan, you got to open up your eyes, man. You got to open up your eyes, because the man is not being truthful, okay? He's not the only one. He's one of many. One of many. However, too many people are listening to that one of many. We heard his stats the other day. He was going on and on and on. Let's listen to this guy. He has some really good information. Very calm, good presentation. Check this out. Here we go.
I've been doing a lot of research over the last few weeks because I'm disappointed with the data that I've been hearing on the news, the lack of respect for citing the source of that data, and the data I've been hearing from our politicians. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about accurate crime data, comparing that crime data to other countries, and why I think the data is different. So let's go over to FBI.gov and look at the Uniform Crime Reports. These are reports the FBI has been putting out every year for a long period of time. What I like about these is that these are unbiased and that the FBI does not advocate policy. I have a hard time accepting statistics from organizations that are actively lobbying Congress or in some way, shape, or form are trying to create policy. So let's look at the national data for violent crimes. Let's look at 1992. We'll see that in 1992 we had a violent crime rate of 757 per 100,000 and a murder rate of 9.3 per 100,000. Now let's fast forward to 2011. We have a violent crime rate now of 386 per 100,000. That is a 50% reduction in violent crime. We have a murder rate of 4.7 per 100,000. That is a 54% decrease. So what I find astonishing about these numbers is that nobody's talking about it. Our media isn't talking about it. Our politicians aren't talking about it. I mean, we have a 50% reduction in the violent crime rate over the last 20 years, yet no one is taking credit for it. I find it, pretty astonishing. It's unbelievable. Does it not play into their fear agenda? That, you're going to walk outside your front door and you're going to get shot? I can't make any sense of it. And so I started looking at the data even further to see that the crime we do have, where is it coming from? When you start to look a little more closely at the data, one thing you'll notice. In metropolitan areas where the population is greater than 250,000, our violent crime rate is double that of the national average. Our murder rate is double that of the national average as well. When looking at the data, you can pinpoint where the crime is coming from. You can dissect that data even further and look on a neighborhood level and see where the true trouble spots are. So I want to know, who's working on improving that? I notice that whenever you try to bring something like that up, it's always a redirect. They want to compare America to another country. America, you guys are always so much more violent than the British. Are we? So let's go over and look at the Home Office. The Home Office keeps statistics that are comparable to the FBI. We're going to be looking at just England and Wales. Northern Ireland and Scotland keep their own crime stats, and those stats are slightly higher. So the England and Wales stats we're looking at will be just a little bit lower. And just to let you know, England and Wales has a population of 56 million. Northern Ireland and Scotland would be about an additional 10 million. So we're just looking at the population of England and Wales. Let's look at 2011. 2011, England and Wales had 762,000 violent crime offenses. That is a ratio of 1,361 violent crimes per 100,000. That is 3.5 times the violent crime rate of the United States. England and Wales does have a murder rate of 1.3. That is lower than the United States, but I think it's important to also look at the overall violent crime. And this is something that you don't hear on the news because they want to pick and choose their stats that meets their agenda. But when you clearly look at overall violent crime, the UK has much, much more than ours. So, less guns does not necessarily mean less violent crime. Now, they do have a lower murder rate, but there's a lot of other factors to look at when you're comparing country to country. And there's one important piece of data that is not taken into consideration. As I already mentioned before, the United States, the bulk of our violent crime is in very small pockets in large metropolitan areas. In the US, we have 186 metropolitan areas where the population is 250,000 or greater. In the UK, they have only 32 metropolitan areas where the population is 250,000 or greater. There's a lot of different data to take into consideration when comparing country to country, and honestly, we've just scratched the surface. But one thing I'll tell you is our media and our politicians have not been clear with this. They make it seem so much easier than it is. And there are a few things that we do know. Over the past 20 years, our violent crime rate in the U.S. has dropped by 50%. We know where the crime is coming from, metropolitan areas with population of over 250,000. We know that the UK has a higher violent crime rate than us. And we also know that we have 6 times more large metropolitan areas than they do. All of those factors have to be considered. I feel like our media isn't being honest about this. They're using the public airwaves to spread their agenda and wrong information, Piers Morgan, as well as our politicians that are already introducing legislation before they even understand what the problem is, Dianne Feinstein. Did you know in 2011, out of the homicides that were caused by firearms, only 3.5% were caused by rifles, and the AR-15 is a subset of the rifle group. Way to pinpoint the problems. I'm going to tell you what, if they want to solve violent crime, they need to put on their boots and go to those neighborhoods and figure out how to improve the poverty level, how to create jobs, and how to improve the education system. That is how you're going to reduce the violent crime in those neighborhoods.
All right, so there's a look at the stats that you didn't hear when you were listening to that redcoat Piers Morgan talk. You know, oh my goodness. And people keep listening. People keep listening. You know, I guess a lot of people don't realize how he was involved with these hacking scandals overseas and then came to America to get away from all of that. I guess they don't know those stories about him. Otherwise, why would they be listening to him? Why would you listen to a guy who was involved with unscrupulous activity in the media in one country, and then he comes to your country and it's okay? You just disregard that. Oh, he was going to be honest over here, right? No, he's not. So, who hired him? That's the good question. If he came with a background that had unscrupulous activities and he comes here, somebody who hired him doesn't really care about those standards, which means they're not trying to set a high standard for you to be able to get quality information when they put someone like that. So, just one of many, my friends. He's just one of many. Okay, now, jumping over to look at HAARP. This is a story, HAARP clouds rolling over the U.S., say researchers. The High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, otherwise called HAARP, is an ionospheric research program jointly funded by the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Navy, the University of Alaska, and the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, otherwise known as DARPA. Built by BAE Advanced Technologies, its purpose is to analyze the ionosphere and investigate the potential for developing ionospheric enhancement technology for radio communications and surveillance. The HAARP program operates a major subarctic facility named the HAARP Research Station on an Air Force-owned site near Gacona, Alaska. The 4 clouds appeared over Knoxville, Tennessee on January 8th. The photographer, who wished to remain anonymous, believes they are evidence of HAARP in action. Physicist Bernard Eastland claimed that HAARP includes technology based on his own patents that has the capability to modify weather and neutralize satellites. The HAARP program began in 1990. The project is funded by the Office of Naval Research and jointly managed by the ONR and the Air Force Research Laboratory with the principal involvement of the University of Alaska. Many other universities and educational institutions of the United States have been involved in the development of the project and its instruments, namely the University of Alaska Fairbanks, Stanford University, Penn State University, Boston College, UCLA, Clemson, Dartmouth College, Cornell University, Johns Hopkins University, University of Maryland, College Park University of Massachusetts, Amherst, MIT, Polytechnic Institute of New York University, and the University of Tulsa. The project's specifications were developed by the universities, which are continuing to play a major role in the design of future research efforts. There's a good video here for you to watch. I'll play it now. Okay, so yes, these technologies do exist. We've talked about them on the show many, many times, and they're going to be used and are being used against the people of the world. Okay, now this next story fits into the story's line of planets. You know, we've heard the stories. First, there's no such thing as these other planets out there that are going to affect us. They all are in their own solar systems. Two, now we know that there's these planets that bob in and out, these rogue planets. So we've gone really a full spectrum of information from one end to the other. They don't exist to now, here they are. So recently we heard we were going to discover a planet with life on it that was like Earth. And then lo and behold, we discovered an Earth-like planet. And then suddenly within a week of that, other Earth-like planets. Now, check this out. 15 exoplanets with habitable zone are discovered. 15 now. The Project Planet Hunters today announced the discovery of another 15 exoplanets with the Goldilocks zone around their respective stars, where the planet is the right distance from the star to have liquid water. The project can enlist the help of citizen scientists to help sort through the huge amount of data provided by NASA's Kepler mission. Planet Hunters is part of the Oxford University project Zoonosphere. The volunteers behind Planet Hunters examine brightness measurements taken by the Kepler for over 150,000 stars, looking for signs that there could be planets orbiting them. When a planet passes in front of a star, there should be a noticeable and temporary drop in brightness. This is one of the identified planets already checked and confirmed by Keck telescope, with roughly the size of Jupiter, an orbiting star similar to our Sun. That planet has been named PH2b, possibly standing for Planet Hunters 2b, since it's the second planet discovered by the Planet Hunters to be confirmed. So, all of these things are only moving us closer to what ufologists have known for a while, that disclosure is at hand, and that the universe is teeming with life, as many have discussed on this planet. So, little by little, this is information. I guess what you have to do is you have to think of the lowest common denominator of intelligence on the planet and then spoon feed them so that they don't get freaked out by what's going on. Because it's not the intelligent ones who are going to be a threat to any extraterrestrial ships that land. It's going to be those with the lowest common intellectual value. They're going to be the ones grabbing the guns going out because they don't know any better, because they've bought into the stories that have been told about invasions and so on. So, little by little, people are being informed, and don't be afraid. Just keep learning out there, folks. That's important. And I know that you know, but I know that you know people that are having these kind of challenges. So, all right. Last thing for today, and this is it's a long piece. It's nearly 2 hours long, and it's just part one. I'm going to play a portion of this today. That way, and then you'll have the link available so you can perhaps watch this over the weekend. Great, great information. Santos Bonacci, I hope I pronounced his name right. You've heard of him when we were doing all the videos about 2012 and the great shifts that are upon us. He's an astrologer. Anyway, this is a really informative piece about the ancient theology or astrotheology. And if you're really interested in the subject, I highly suggest watching this video because it's filled with great information. Here we go.
We're going to be continuing with the theme of Theology. Okay? Theology is the ancient theology. Now, astrotheology is a big part of this. It's probably a third of it. And astrology, which I was dealing with last week, is a big chunk of it too. So, continuing with this theme of ancient theology, we're going to honour a truth speaker of the 16th century, because he died on the 17th of February 1600, Giordano Bruno. Now, Giordano Bruno was a person who spoke about the Prisca Theologia all the time, and he was bringing it to the world. In fact, he brought it to Queen Elizabeth. And Queen Elizabeth was contemplating making the British Isles hermetic. But of course, the clergy got wind of the plot, sent Giordano Bruno a packing back to Italy, and of course made sure that fictional Roman Christian religion would continue in their country. What I mean by that is that and as I've proven with my presentations, that Rome has invented the fiction of the historical Jesus Christ for purposes of enslavement. Astrotheology. Now, when you mention astrotheology, people think... I actually have seen comments on the internet where people think it's just a recent term and it's just recently been invented by, say, Jordan Maxwell or someone like Michael Tsarian or one of those guys. But here's Kersey Graves from 1880, and he uses the word astrotheology. This guy also, the Reverend Robert Taylor, uses the expression. And he's from 1830s, okay? Now, first thing that happens is when you talk about astrotheology is that the churchgoers poo-poo the idea. And they deny that Christianity has anything to do with the stars. The original religio/science of this planet. You see, the Prisca Theologia explains that the stars were originally the components of nature that were studied and observed with intent to discover our origins and many truths about reality. And what they did was they encoded books, writings in which they would reveal their discoveries to mankind. So they discovered a lot by observing the stars, you see, the ancient priesthoods. And in doing so, they realised that we were more than connected with the stars. You know, we were very, very connected with the stars. So what developed was a science whereby if we take notice of nature, and the most potent aspects of nature would have to be the stars, the lights in the skies. They called them the spirit father fountains of life. And they realised that these entities had an influence on us. They observed these influences and recorded them. And the Bible, the Judeo-Christian work, Hebrew, Greek writings, nothing other than astrotheological themes. Okay, they are stories about the observances of the stars and their behaviour and their cycles, etc. So the first thing they do, the religionists, is they deny that the origin of their faith and belief is based on the stars. You see, so what we're going to do is have a look at some of the words and designations of the ministers and the people who practice in the churches. So we've got cardinal, deacon, sexton, Monsignor, Sir, Nun, Minister, Pastor, Monk, Ceremony, Bishop, Orison, Monastery, etc. Cardinal, this is, in astrology, this is the 4 cardinal signs. Okay? Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. A deacon is 10 degrees of astrology. Sexton, having the word 6 in it, and having to do with astrology, just like bishop is, 3 degrees. 10 degrees, 3 degrees. Monsignor, Sir. Sir is just short for the star Sirius, because he's the Lord. He's the boss. He's the brightest star in the sky. Yes, sir. Nun. Minister, here we see moon and star. Same with pastor. Moon. Ceres. Moon. Bishop, already discussed that. Orison. Moon. Star. Monastery. Now that's pretty much the designations that these ministers give themselves. Another good one would be elder. In the L words, when you look at the L words, you'll notice a lot of L in there because of the sun, Elios. You see, in Greek the sun is called Elios, and in the Jewish system the Elohim happen to be the planets and the luminaries in the sky, the 7 visible orbs. And you see the words such as elect, elite, the elder in the congregation. He'd be a minister, would he not? A moon star, one who talks about El, Israel, Isis, Ra, and Elohim, evangelizing, etc., etc. I mean, these are all church words, okay? And so, because the sun is the El who provides 3 things to mankind for their existence. And that would be love, light, and life, undeniably. For that orb has more love for us than any other. It's the creator of everything physical in the solar system. And together with the other 6 are what cause us to manifest in the physical realms.
All right, there you go. I'm going to leave it right there. Good information. I suggest you watch the whole thing. I was watching it all last night. Great information. So you do the same. All right? Let's move on from here to our meditation for today. What I'd like you to do is go ahead and close your eyes and relax. Close your eyes and relax. Take a deep breath and exhale. I want you to imagine that you are moving along a path of life. And as you look ahead of you, you see a rest stop. And you look behind, and you see the great distance that you have traveled. And you approach the rest stop, and you stop. And you look ahead to the direction you are going, and you see there's a long open road ahead of you. And as you try to recall all the things that happened to you in the past, you find that there are so many of them that it's hard to remember each and every one. But you try and you do. And then you turn your attention to the future. And you realize that, like the past, by the time you get down the road, there will be just as many experiences. And you determine that knowing in advance what the future might hold might take some of the fun away. Might give you too much of a sense of worry about things, or unnecessary concerns. So you decide to simply allow life to unfold, and for you to evolve in the way that is the smoothest and easiest. You take a moment to contemplate the goals that you've set for yourself, so you understand that you have a roadmap of where you're going. And though you don't know every detail about how you are going to get to those locations, just having the awareness that you will arrive is enough. And so you understand that part of the journey forward is to let go and know where your part of the planning ends and Spirit's part of the planning begins. And as you work together to co-create your future, you realize that you have been co-creating your past as well. And the more you understand the process of co-creation that is happening, the better you're able to work with Spirit. So imagine yourself continuing along the path, one step after another. Imagine meeting all kinds of others along the way. Other people who are moving along their particular paths. And you realize, even though we're all individually moving in our own way, to our own rhythm, there is a common understanding amongst everyone. A common direction we are all headed. And that it takes all of the individual movements to make up the collective direction that we are going. For there are many things to do, and it takes many, many bodies to be able to do all of the different things that need to be done. We can't all do the same thing. And with that, you realize how important it is that you do exactly what you are supposed to do to the rhythm that flows within you. And so you walk, and you get to a hill, and you begin to climb the hill. And as you climb up the side of the hill, it seems as if it gets steeper and steeper. And the hill becomes a small mountain. And you climb, And anything that gets in your way, you move around it, climb over it, until eventually you get to the top, to a flat plateau on the top of this mountain. And you sit down and you oversee the valley below. And here you get to really see the different perspective that is taken when we step away from that which we are in the middle of. And by gaining a new perspective, it helps us to understand and appreciate a bit more how we fit into the big scheme, into the big picture. And with that understanding, we take another deep breath, exhale, we let love out from our heart, the heart chakra. Imagine this love going all around the planet, connecting with all of the love that others are sending around as well. Imagine this love going down into the planet, up into the cosmos, and just allow your unconscious mind to send out this love and receive this love while your conscious mind is brought back to the present moment on the count of 3. 3, coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2, coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1, coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. All right, my friends, that is it for today, for the week. Thank you very much. So check out the video. The videos, there is a bunch of them during the week that were just, parts of videos, like the one today, or the one in the Kryballion, the one on the alien interview. Check those out. Also, I want to remind you that there is the page 2012 about the 2012 experiences you had. There's a tab on the top of the page. We have a couple of really great responses there, but I know there's a lot more of you there out there. I know that there's a lot more of you out there who've had experiences. So if you would like, share those with us so we can see what's going on. Make a comparison of what people were experiencing at that time, perhaps what you're experiencing now. Because what began on December 21st was just the beginning of a new cycle, and we're all going through and experiencing this change together. So the page is there just for anyone who wishes to share. See what's up there already. Like I said, there's 2 really great ones, and add yours to the mix. That's it. I'll be back on Monday with more news and information. You have a great weekend. I will talk to you soon. Peace. I'm out of here.